Hey everybody, Brian here from Fitzpatrick's. I want to show you this car here. This is a new KONA, fully electric. For the video, I want to show you what the features are inside and outside the car and go for a drive. But before I start showing you this one, I should have popped back a couple of years. So, about 2017, we were introduced to this car here, which was the Hyundai Ioniq, which was basically a 28 kilowatt hour battery, did about 230 kilometers, and it was decent. There was about 120 odd horsepower in it at the time. Eventually then that car became a 38 kilowatt hour battery, getting it up to about 300 kilometers at about 140 horsepower. Being honest, at the time, I wasn't overly enthusiastic about electric cars. I liked them to drive. They were nice and quiet and comfortable. But then, in 2019, we ended up with electric KONA, which came with a 64 kilowatt hour battery, that's 485 kilometers range and 200 horsepower. When the car arrived with us, I was saying to my friends, you gotta come try this. I like a fast car. I like a car that accelerates. This was fun. Basically, out of nowhere, the most interesting and fun car to drive of all the mainstream cars we sold outside of the i30N became an electric vehicle, which was this KONA. The other great thing about that KONA was it had killed the range anxiety issue. So I do a 160 kilometer round trip. I was now able to get into a car and charge it maybe every second or third day. No longer was I thinking about range anxiety for the first time in an electric vehicle. To be fair, Hyundai as a manufacturer have big ambitions. They want to be within the top 3 of EV producers, and they're producing some awesome technology, and they are heavily investing in electric vehicles going forward. As are most manufacturers, but you have to respect the fact they have produced 2 world cars of the year in 2 years in a row, being the Ioniq 5 and the Ioniq 6. Well, fair enough, most manufacturers are going towards EV, but for people, some of you might be converted already into EV, some of you might still be dubious about it. There's one thing you have to think about. On a combustion engine car, which is like a petrol diesel car, only about 20 to 30% of the fuel energy actually ends up in mechanical energy that moves the vehicle. As opposed to something like an electric vehicle, where actually 85 to 95% of the electric energy actually gets converted into mechanical energy that moves the vehicle. So for the moment, it looks like there's a lot of sense for manufacturers to consider or continue developing electric technology. Anyway, let's have a look at this car compared to its predecessor. We'll have a look around the features on the outside of the car in a sec. So this is more just about dimensions. In terms of weight, the new one is a couple of hundred kgs heavier, but you'd expect that because it is a larger vehicle. One of the things people like about these cars is the height. The height is actually quite similar. The new model on the right hand side, it's about 10 millimeters higher than the predecessor. And in terms of width then, it's about 25 millimeters wider compared to the predecessor. When they are lined up side by side, the wheelbase is about 2 inches longer on the newer model, and then the absolute length of the car in terms of the overhang, there's actually 25 millimeters of extra length. In terms of boot sizes, the new one is considerably bigger. So the first generation boot came in roughly around 371 litres, but the newer boot is coming in at 466 litres. Like the previous model and most electric cars, you will get a granny cable, and you'll also get the 32 amp cable as well for charging. So it is a much bigger vehicle than previous. Okay, let's see how it looks compared to a petrol. So this one here is petrol, this one here is the full EV. The petrol, this is the high-spec petrol, so there is a softer look on the first 2 models of petrol, and then this third model of petrol is a little bit more aggressive. But the things I would take from it are, if you look at the, this is the only model that comes with a solid horizon all the way along in petrol. Just look at the kind of lighting that's on it. And then if you look at this one over here, this one has little diodes that are broken down along the center, so you don't see them on the petrol version. And what's significant there is those little broken diodes also match the shiny reflective finish that's on these little squares that are along the bottom of the bumper. So one thing that I would say, and we'll see it when we're looking at the hybrid, the petrol end line is probably the most aggressive looking, but actually, weirdly enough, the EV is actually probably the middle in terms of how aggressive looking it is, because we'll see the hybrids a little bit softer, and the entry model petrols are a little bit softer looking in their shapes on the bumpers. We'll also see on the hybrids and the first 2 models of petrol, the cladding is not colour coded, but I'll talk to you about that again in a sec. This end line, it happens to be colour coded. I'm going to come back to that point in a sec. Right, looking at the rear, so if you look, you have that long horizon bar along there. This one has a long horizon bar, but again, broken into individual LEDs that are all the way across. Again, more shapes and designs, red and grey, and this gloss black finish around through here on the rear. So at a glance, quite similar, but just small little sections, a lot of just little square shapes on the full electric version. For some people, I know it's going to be glaringly obvious, but the 2 cars are the same dimensions in terms of size. So petrol, hybrid, or full electric. It's the same size of vehicle. Looking down the side of the car, again, we're going to see compared to the hybrid, there's more colour coding. And then the wheels on the electric version are a 17-inch wheel. Just while we're talking about it, this is a platinum version. So in other words, there's two models. This one is the second model, which means it's a higher specification. I'm going to talk about the significance of that in a sec. Okay, let's have a look at the electric compared to a hybrid version. Because for most people, that's probably going to be the comparison. Are they going to go hybrid or are they going to go electric? Because the prices aren't terribly dissimilar. So the first thing is, looking at the bumpers, they are quite different at the bottom. The electric car has LEDs on the front for indicators. And as we saw already, the bar then has LEDs in through the centre, which separate the parking or daytime running lights there and there. So the LED section along the centre there. Whereas on these hybrids, there's a gap. Like we said, LED indicators, halogen indicators. And then looking at the bumper there with all the little pixels and stuff like that, and the way it's shaped aggressively up and across compared to this one here, which is a little bit of a softer looking front end. At the rear, again at a glance, very, very similar, but again we see LEDs over here. Like what we saw on the petrol, long horizon line there, whereas this one has the little diodes that are in between. It has those shapes with the gloss black on the top of the back bumper. This one bumper over here is probably a little bit more busy looking with the brushed aluminium down through there, whereas this one then is more colour coding, and you'll see that on the side of the car. Just bear in mind here, this cladding here and here compared to all the colour coding that's over here. And we can say the same about the front. So again, there's more black cladding down low and a crossover through here, whereas this one, there's much more colour coding. Looking down the sides of the car then, again, more black cladding over here on the hybrid. And one point to note, the first and second model petrols, they are identical when it comes to cladding, whereas everything on all the electric versions seems to be all colour coded. Looking down low then, you'll see nice black gloss all the way down there, and along the bottom of the bumper, more nice gloss black along through there as well. Just one point to note before we go further. Sorry, there's the boot because it was quite dark last night. If you want to know more about the difference between the old and new model KONA and just this newer version KONA in general, I have this video here, and this video will run through a lot of the stuff that's not EV unique, but just about the new model KONA. Anyway, quick things, sitting in the back of the car, that's how much headroom I'm going to have, and that's how much legroom I'm going to have. Because the wheelbase is longer, we said a little over 2 inches, and because the car is about 25 millimeters longer, I have way more legroom than I did on the previous model. Another question that might come up, and I'm pretty sure, just to clarify, on KONAs, they are all going to come in electric with the 17-inch wheel that you see here. Unlike the petrol that can come with a 16-inch wheel or a 17-inch wheel or the 18-inch wheel we saw on the N line that we were comparing up above. Hybrids, depending which models you're looking at, will come with an 18-inch wheel or a 17-inch wheel, but for the EV, like what we said, always going to be a 17-inch wheel. One other thing I just want to detail, because this is specifically a platinum model. I will have another video for the Elegance model that comes before it, but my understanding is on the Elegance model, it won't have the joining light in between. So it'll have these two lights along over here either side as daytime runners or parking lights, but you have to go to this platinum to get the joining seamless horizon lamp in between the two headlights. While we're on the topic actually of what's in this platinum, this one specifically will have a blind view monitor. So when we go left or right, joining a motorway, whatever it is, you get these little monitors just to show you what's either side. On this platinum, you'll also get a heads up display. So you can see in front of me, it's telling me my speed and the current speed zone we're in, reflected onto the glass. The platinum gets this really, really nice leather interior, whereas then the Elegance full electric car will have a cloth interior instead. The platinum's also going to have electric driver seat over here, and also then an electric passenger seat. And it's also going to get in platinum a camera here. It's going to have a camera there. The other wing mirror is the same. And as you'd imagine, then the rear of the car is going to have that. So I can look backwards or I can look forwards. And finally then, platinum over here is going to have a auto dimming rear view mirror. I just wanted to make a note of those things because everything I talk about after that is going to be standard on all KONA EVs. So I just wanted to get them 6 or 7 points out to say that you got to go platinum if you want those specific things we just talked about. But everything I talk about going forward is going to be standard on both models. The car I'm driving is a 65 kilowatt hour battery. That's 214 brake horsepower, and ranges I've seen quoted 511 to 514 kilometers. There's also going to be a 48 kilowatt hour battery, which is the smaller battery in this case, but that's a lot bigger than the last model, and that's going to give you 377 kilometers range and about 153 brake horsepower. One thing I love about driving electric cars, there's really great power and immediate feeling in them, but when I'm coming up to junctions, what's cool about them is I don't use the brake pads. So when I'm driving one of these, I use the paddles quite a bit. So if you see the paddles here on the left and the right, in this case I'm going to use this left paddle, going to hold it, and that's going to slow the car down. The regenerative braking, it's gaining power, but it's also actually slowing the car down and not using my brake pads. And in terms of power, the acceleration is awesome, just like before. The one thing about electric cars is they're fun to drive. So, and like this car I'm driving is 214 horsepower. Like when I was growing up, a fast car was 200 horsepower. This is a standard electric car, so this is actually economical, easy to run, but actually fun to drive. And it sits really nice on a back road like this. It's firm, but it makes you feel confident, so I've no problem driving the car on a back road like this. So it drives really nice. Okay, electrics for windows and mirrors, parking brake, controls for Bluetooth and radio. Over through here then, menu controls for changing information up through the centre, like tyre pressures and various driver feedback for how efficient the vehicle is. Cruise control on them is standard. Sorry, one thing I forgot to say, on the Platinum, it's radar cruise, so it follows the car in front. Storage. Take that out, more storage, drinks holders that appear. Down through here then, a drive mode, so that'll give you more aggressive. So there's a snow mode to adjust how the traction control works in snow. Sport to make it much more aggressive. And actually I accelerated in eco mode back there. So that'll reduce how aggressive cruise control and air conditioning and all that stuff is. Heated seats on both sides, heated steering wheel. Again, like I said to you, all this kind of stuff will be standard. There is a wireless charge pad. There is USB-C, so it's going to be faster, but you might need an adapter if you have a USB-A at the moment. So 1 and 2 charge points. This one can be charging or charging and data if you want to use Apple CarPlay, Android Auto. Apparently the reason on these, some of the lower spec Hyundais actually have wireless Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, but the higher spec ones don't, because they always have the big screen, and it's some sort of licensing agreement issue. That's why they don't have an agreement for this wireless technology yet. For whatever reason, I'm sure it's political, whatever it is. Heating controls on either side, start stop button in through there. All the menus are in through here, but there's a lot of shortcuts to make it simple for people. Home, map, search where you want to go on the map, media, which is the radio source, or music or whatever source. Big screen in through there for navigation, and screen over here then for radio, station list, all that kind of stuff. EV battery menu, so that's a lot more detailed and nicer looking than before. So the battery status, ooh, that's interesting. Battery status, yeah, okay, sorry, no, I thought it was something else. Oh, okay, there's a lot more adjustability in this than there was before. Energy consumption history, okay, we had that, but it looks much nicer. Lock the charging cable. Wow, that's so much easier looking than it was before. Battery conditioning, if you want to pre-condition the battery to have it charge more, you can warm it to have it charge more, what's the word I'm looking for? More efficiently when you go to a charge point. What are the main consumption drivers in the vehicle? So that's pretty nice looking, that menu. And then swipe over in through here for things like phone, Apple CarPlay, Android Auto, voice memo, weather that actually, in fairness, works once you activate the blue link, calendar, and then there's a million gazillion settings in here for the vehicle. So lots of the stuff you want to change all in through there. And then the last thing we swipe over again, and you end up with things like sports, valet mode if you want privacy, vehicle diagnostics, general notifications, and also an owner's manual. Safety wise, all the usual stuff: driver side impact airbags, curtain airbags. This is going to monitor where your eyeballs are pointing to warn you to keep your eyes on the road, so it's an attention monitor. Wipers are fully automatic, lights fully automatic, so they dip when they meet traffic, and then the paddles we saw when we were driving the car as well. The gear shifter is down through here: forward, backwards, park. And one really neat thing on the newer Konas is basically what you can do is put on an auto hold, switch is on there, and that means if I turn off the handbrake, every time I turn off the car from now on, the handbrake engages. And you get this nice little display at the end of your journey. just to tell you what's going on with the car in terms of the range and stuff like that, that you're finishing up your journey on. So it's not a super in-depth look, but hopefully it gives you a better idea of what the newer KONA hybrid is all, KONA electric even, what it's all about. If there's any information you want on this car, 086 843 1945. Call, text, WhatsApp, whatever suits. Brian's my name, Fitzpatrick's Garage, family-run business in operation for over 70 years. Oh yeah, the last thing actually, this is the key. So lock and unlock, but it's completely keyless for getting in and out of the car. So when you start and stop your journey, lock the car, or you can use the same button just to unlock. So anyway, hopefully the video has been useful. Hopefully you really like the car. One thing I would say, it's nice, it has a long range, and it's fun to drive again. So hopefully the vehicle's of interest. Thanks a million for watching.